During my nephew's birthday party, my brother announced, "Uncle's paying for the new playground equipment." "Aren't you, Uncle?" Everyone cheered. I smiled and nodded. The next day, I had the equipment delivered to a children's hospital across town. I sent the family a photo with the dedication plaque, donated by someone who actually cares about kids. I, 34M, learned something important at my nephew's 7th birthday party last Saturday. Never let family mistake your kindness for weakness. My brother and I grew up close, or at least I thought we did. He married young, had 3 kids by the time he was 30, and settled into suburban family life while I focused on building my software consulting business. The money came steadily over the years, and I never made a big deal about it. I drove a decent car, lived in a nice apartment, and helped family when they needed it. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth, but comfortable enough that everyone knew I was doing well. The problems started small. My brother would mention needing a new lawnmower, and somehow I'd find myself offering to split the cost. His wife would casually talk about how expensive kids' sports equipment was getting, and I'd end up buying my nephew's soccer gear. It became a pattern I didn't fully recognize until it was already established. Each request felt reasonable in isolation, but looking back, I could see how they'd been testing boundaries for months. The birthday party was at their house, one of those chaotic weekend affairs with 20 screaming kids, bounce houses, and enough pizza to feed a small army. I showed up with a wrapped bicycle and a card with $200 inside, which felt generous for a 7-year-old's birthday. My brother greeted me at the door with a hug that lasted a beat too long, the kind that feels performative when other people are watching. The afternoon rolled along normally enough. I helped set up games, made small talk with relatives I barely recognized, and watched my nephew tear through presents with the focused intensity only children can muster. The bike got a decent reaction, though it was quickly forgotten in the pile of toys and games. I noticed my sister-in-law whispering something to my brother during the cake cutting, both of them glancing my way with expressions I couldn't quite read. After the candles were blown out and the kids scattered back to their sugar-fueled chaos, my brother clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. The backyard went quiet except for the distant sounds of children playing. He launched into a speech about family and gratitude, his voice taking on that practiced tone people use when they've rehearsed something. My stomach started to tighten before I even knew why. Then he said it. The kids' school was raising money for new playground equipment, he explained, and it was expensive, nearly $12,000 for the whole set. But the kids would love it, and wouldn't it be wonderful if someone could help make it happen? He turned to me with this enormous smile, his arms sweeping in my direction like a game show host revealing a prize, and announced that Uncle was paying for the new playground equipment. He paused for effect, then added the kicker. Weren't I? The backyard erupted in cheers and applause. Relatives I'd barely spoken to were suddenly clapping and smiling at me. My nephew ran over and hugged my legs, shouting about how awesome the swings would be. My mother grabbed my hand and told me how proud she was. Everyone was looking at me with these expectant faces, already celebrating a generosity I hadn't agreed to. I felt my face freeze in what I hoped looked like a smile. My mind was racing through the implications, the calculations, the sheer audacity of what had just happened. $12,000 wasn't going to bankrupt me, but that wasn't the point. The point was that my brother had just publicly volunteered my money without asking, had put me in a position where refusing would make me look like the villain in front of my entire family. I nodded slowly, keeping that smile locked in place. I told everyone I was happy to help, that the kids deserved nice things. The applause got louder. My brother clapped me on the shoulder and pulled me into another hug, whispering his thanks against my ear. His wife was already on her phone, probably texting other parents about their sudden good fortune. The rest of the party passed in a blur. People kept coming up to thank me, to tell me what a good uncle I was, how lucky the kids were to have me. Each compliment felt like another nail in the coffin of a relationship I was only just realizing had been hollow for longer than I wanted to admit. I stayed until it was socially acceptable to leave, made my excuses about early morning work, and drove home in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment, the way my brother had turned to me with that smile, so confident I wouldn't say no. The way he'd orchestrated the whole thing to maximize pressure and minimize my options. It wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, about boundaries, about the assumption that I existed as a walking ATM for their convenience. I thought about all the times I'd helped before. The lawnmower, the sports equipment, the down payment assistance on their current house that I'd been told was a loan, but had somehow never been mentioned again. The pattern was clear once I stopped making excuses for it. They saw me as a resource to be tapped, not a brother to be valued. By sunrise, I'd made my decision. I called the school on Monday morning and explained that there had been a miscommunication about the playground equipment donation. The principal sounded disappointed but understanding. I asked for the specifications of what they'd been planning to order, told her I needed the information for something else, and promised to get back to her. Then I started researching children's hospitals in the area. I found one about 40 minutes away that had a pediatric wing with an outdoor play area that hadn't been updated in over a decade. The photos on their website showed sun-faded equipment and worn rubber surfaces. I called their fundraising department and asked about equipment donations. The woman I spoke with practically cried when I explained what I wanted to do. They'd been trying to raise funds for new playground equipment for 2 years, she told me, but hospital donations usually went to medical equipment and research. The play area was always last priority, even though the kids who spent weeks or months in treatment desperately needed that outdoor time and those moments of normalcy. We arranged everything over the next few days. I worked directly with the hospital and the equipment company, ensuring everything met safety standards and was appropriate for children with various medical needs. The total came to just under $15,000 once we added specialized accessible equipment for kids in wheelchairs and with mobility issues. I wrote the check without hesitation. I also arranged for a plaque, simple and bronze, to be mounted near the entrance to the play area. The inscription was short, donated by someone who actually cares about kids. My brother started texting me 3 days after the party, asking about timing for the equipment order. I gave vague responses about handling it and not to worry. He sent increasingly frequent messages over the next week, asking for updates, wanting to know when installation would happen. I told him everything was being taken care of. The installation at the hospital took 2 weeks. I visited the site on the final day, watching workers put the finishing touches on slides and climbing structures designed for children who'd seen too much of hospital rooms and medical procedures. The staff gave me a tour of the pediatric wing, introduced me to a few kids who were well enough to be excited about the new equipment. One little girl, maybe 5 years old with a pink headscarf covering her bald head, asked if the swings went really high. I told her they did. The dedication ceremony was small, just hospital staff and a few families whose children were long-term patients. The CEO made a speech about the importance of play and healing, about how these moments of childhood joy mattered just as much as the medical treatment. They unveiled the plaque, and several people came up to shake my hand afterward. One mother, her eyes red from crying, thanked me for giving her son something to look forward to during his chemotherapy sessions. I took several photos on my phone. The playground, the plaque, the kids who were already testing out the equipment with the kind of pure happiness that makes you remember why any of this matters. Then I sent the clearest photo of the dedication plaque to the family group chat. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing with incoming messages before I'd even left the hospital parking lot. My brother called 4 times in a row. My sister-in-law sent a stream of increasingly frantic texts. My mother called, her voice confused and hurt, asking what was happening. Other relatives chimed in with question marks and confused emojis. I let them stew for an hour before I responded to the group chat. I kept it simple. I explained that I'd thought carefully about where $12,000 could do the most good, and I decided to donate it to children who were fighting for their lives rather than kids who already had everything they needed. I added that in the future, I'd appreciate being asked before my generosity was volunteered on my behalf. My brother called again immediately. This time I answered. He was furious. He asked me what I thought I was doing, whether I understood that I'd made him look like a liar in front of the entire school community. He'd already told everyone the equipment was coming. Parents were asking about installation dates. The PDA had thanked him at their last meeting. How was he supposed to explain this? I let him finish his rant. Then I asked him a simple question. When exactly had he planned to ask me if I wanted to donate $12,000? The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, he said he thought I'd be happy to help. That family was supposed to support each other. He reminded me of all the times they'd been there for me, though he struggled to provide specific examples. He said I was being selfish and making this about pride when it should be about the kids. I told him he was right, that it should be about the kids. That's why I'd given the money to children who actually needed it, who didn't have backyards full of toys and parents who could afford bounce house parties. I said I was done being treated like a checkbook instead of a brother, and that if he ever wanted to actually rebuild our relationship, he knew how to reach me. Then I hung up. The fallout was predictable. My mother tried to play peacemaker, suggesting we all sit down and talk things through like adults. Several relatives sent private messages either supporting my decision or gently suggesting I'd overreacted. My sister-in-law posted something vague on social media about being disappointed by people who let you down when you need them most, which got enough engagement that I knew she was getting support from her echo chamber. The school situation resolved itself quietly. The PDA apparently found other funding sources and scaled back their plans, which made me suspect the $12,000 figure had been inflated anyway. My brother sent one final text message 2 weeks later, saying I'd ruined his son's birthday and destroyed their family's reputation over pride and selfishness. I didn't respond. 3 months have passed now, and the initial drama has faded into the background hum of family dysfunction. Some relatives still try to stay neutral, inviting both of us to events and hoping we'll naturally reconcile. My mother mentions my brother in conversation like she's testing whether the wound is still fresh. It is, but not in the way she thinks. I'm not angry anymore. Mostly I feel this profound sense of clarity, like I'd been looking at a distorted image my whole life, and someone finally adjusted the lens. The relationship I thought I had with my brother never actually existed. I'd been playing a role in a dynamic that benefited him while slowly hollowing me out, and I'd been too close to see it. The hospital sends me quarterly updates about the playground. They include photos of kids using the equipment, stories about how it's impacted recovery and morale. Last month, they invited me to a fundraising gala as an honored guest. I declined, but I appreciated the gesture. The donation wasn't about recognition. It was about making sure my money went somewhere it actually mattered. I saw my nephew last week at a mandatory family gathering. He's grown a few inches since the birthday party, his face losing that baby roundness and starting to show hints of the person he'll become. He was polite but distant, clearly coached on how to interact with the uncle who let everyone down. I gave him a card with $50 in it, because he's still just a kid caught in adult problems that aren't his fault. My brother and I stood on opposite sides of the room all afternoon, navigating conversations and movements to ensure we never had to acknowledge each other. His wife gave me the kind of tight smile that could cut glass. Other relatives watched our careful dance with the uncomfortable awareness of people witnessing a relationship corpse they're not ready to bury. I left early, claiming work obligations that weren't exactly a lie. As I drove home, I thought about that moment at the birthday party, the applause and the expectant faces and my brother's confident smile. I thought about the choice I'd made in that split second to play along, knowing even then that I was going to flip the script. Some people might say I handled it wrong, that I should have confronted my brother privately instead of making a public statement. They might be right about the method, but they'd be wrong about the message. Public pressure was his weapon of choice, so I responded in kind. He'd assumed I valued keeping peace more than keeping my dignity. He was wrong. The Children's Hospital sent me a video last week of their Halloween celebration in the new playground. Kids in costumes that fit over hospital gowns and 4 lines, running and climbing and laughing with the kind of resilience that makes you believe in something bigger than yourself. One little boy in a superhero cape waved at the camera from the top of the slide, his smile wide despite the medical equipment still attached to his arm. That's worth $12,000. That's worth the awkward family gatherings and the damaged relationship with my brother and all the relatives who think I should have just quietly written the check and let it go. Those kids needed someone to care about them beyond the walls of their hospital rooms. They got a playground. My nephew got another toy in a house already full of them. I don't regret my choice, not even a little bit. If anything, I regret not setting boundaries sooner, not recognizing the pattern before it became so ingrained. But I'm learning. I'm getting better at seeing the difference between family that values you and family that values what you provide. My brother might never speak to me again. That's his choice to make. But at least now our relationship is honest in its dysfunction rather than false in its appearance of closeness. Sometimes burning a bridge is the healthiest thing you can do, especially when that bridge only ever carried traffic in one direction. I still think about that moment sometimes, standing in my brother's backyard with everyone applauding and expecting me to play the role I'd been assigned. The old version of me would have written the check and felt good about being needed. The new version understands that being used isn't the same thing as being valued, and generosity without respect isn't kindness, it's exploitation. The playground equipment will serve those hospital kids for years to come. Long after my nephew has forgotten about his 7th birthday party, children fighting for their lives will be climbing those structures and finding moments of joy in the middle of their hardest days. That legacy means something. That matters in ways a backyard conversation at a birthday party never could. So no, I don't regret it. I'd make the same choice again tomorrow. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.